Welcome and welcome to everybody watching us online. So to begin with, if you would just take a moment, put down your tea and your notebooks, and if you're comfortable, putting your feet flat on the ground, and just bringing your attention inwards, and finding your breath. Closing your eyes, if that's comfortable for you, or just lowering your gaze and following your breath. Taking in a full, deep breath, no effort, and breathing out with no effort. Just following the cycle of your breath, in and out. Breathing in like a wave rolling up the beach. Breathing out like the wave returning to the ocean. Just feeling that easy rhythm as your body breathes itself. There's nothing to do, just to relax and notice your breathing. And see what that feels like. Breathing in, calming body and mind. Breathing out, smiling. Just see what it feels like to bring a gentle smile to your lips. And now we're going to take 3 full breaths together. And every time we exhale, I'm going to invite you to make a noise, if you'd like to, just to really underline letting go and releasing. Breathing in, feeling fresh energy filling your body. Breathing out, releasing tension. With a sigh, breathing in, breathing out, releasing. This time a little deeper. Letting go of tension in your body, letting go of tension in your mind. And one more time. Breathing in, fresh energy of this moment. Breathing out, letting go. And notice how that is for you. If there was any shift in just taking 3 simple breaths together. And that actually is our first practice. The mindful pause is nothing more than stopping, breathing, and relaxing. So before I introduce myself, I'd love to know a little bit more about you. How many people in the room have been diagnosed with cancer? Most. How many people in the last year? Yeah, several. And how many people 5 years out? 10 years out? 15 years out? And more. Yeah. I'm 17 years out from breast cancer diagnosis. So, and forgive me, I forgot. How many caregivers are in the space with us? Thank you, thank you. And how many have loved ones or colleagues living with cancer? Several of you. And several of you are in both roles, I notice. Yes, particularly hard. I have been there too. So my name is Erica Rayner Horn, and what I want to share with you is that despite the fact I'm a psychotherapist. I teach mindfulness-based stress reduction. I teach meditation. And I have been meditating since my late teens in London. Nothing prepared me for those 3 little words, "You have cancer." I forgot everything. It all went out the window. The shock, the denial, the fear were as profound for me as I'm sure they were for most of us here. But what I've noticed is that when I remembered my practice, boy, did it make a difference. It made a radical difference to how I got through my treatment and how I've been managing for 16 years since. So that's why I'm here. Mindfulness can really make a difference. And I vowed when I got well again that I would create programs. I still haven't got the book out, but I'm working on it. For people like myself living with cancer, using mindfulness, self-compassion, and meditation. Because I tried to find a retreat for myself 17 years ago. It didn't exist. So 7 years ago, I actually started one. And every year now, for 7 years, we meet on Whidbey Island for 5 days. And there are some participants from that retreat actually here with us. And it will be happening again in April of next year. Forgive me, my throat is a little raspy today. So I'm needing my mindfulness practice to deal with it. So let's get started with what is mindfulness. Some of you may have an idea, but here's my definition. Mindfulness is a way of deepening awareness through paying attention with curiosity and kindness. Note those 2 words. In a non-judgmental way to whatever happens, whatever arises in the present moment. Why do we need to pay attention to whatever's arising in the present moment? Well, unless you are very different than most people, our mind zones out all the time. Have you ever read a book and noticed you're turning pages? And yes, this lady knows what I'm talking about. Yes, a few more. And you can't remember a single word that you just read. Pardon? ADD, maybe. According to a Harvard study, 50% of our time we're actually zoned out, not present, not paying attention. That's a shocking number. It's actually technically 47%. So mindfulness is about coming back and claiming that half of our life we're not really present. So healing the emotional impact of cancer. We're going to talk more about emotions in a moment, but just to say in a nutshell that every stage of cancer, for most of us, brings intense emotions. Many of them are different, many of them are the same. Does anybody not experience that who's had a cancer diagnosis? No, right. It's all the research says this is one of the most distressing things about living with cancer. And actually, for some people, the emotional challenge is even worse than the physical challenge itself. Is that true of anybody here? Yes, yes, lots of nods, lots of nods. I would say for me too. I managed the physical aspect pretty well, but emotionally it was rough. There's a young woman, Jennifer, who wrote a blog about her cancer experience. She was diagnosed with stage 3 lung cancer, age 24. She said, the most debilitating thing for me about this life-threatening illness is the fear that comes with it. For me, it's much worse than the illness. That's true for many of us. and the challenge of living with uncertainty. Some cancer survivors find this emotionally paralyzing. It's like, if you know the Greek myth of Damocles, the sword of Damocles hanging over your head, it really can be extremely hard. And most people will talk about the uncertainty as being one of the major factors that they struggle with. And yet at the same time, we know life is really unpredictable. And we can't predict the weather. We can't predict when and who is going to have a car accident or be diagnosed with cancer. What really happens, I think, is that when we have an illness like this, we realize we're actually not in control in the way that we thought we were before we were diagnosed. And the only real certainty is uncertainty. So the question becomes, how can we find peace in the midst of this uncertainty that we all live in? The truth is, most of us, when we're in distress, seek outside ourselves. We look for a prescription for something. We self-medicate with anything, shopping, alcohol, TV, drugs. We find things outside ourselves to try not to be present. But the gift of mindfulness is that it teaches us to turn inwards and actually harness the power of our own thoughts, mind, emotions, and body to help us without the side effects. And the simplest way to immediately find relief and to calm anxiety and fear is actually that little tiny practice we did in the beginning. Don't underestimate how powerful it is. I have been doing this for decades. I go to retreats with a Vietnamese monk teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, some of you may know, where we stop and pause many times throughout the day. The last retreat, we were 1,400 people, and a bell would ring. Everyone would stop and take 3 breaths, come back to themselves, relax, and continue. So that tiny little practice really can make a difference. And just to remind you, this is the practice. Stop. Breathe 3 times and relax. But notice you are relaxing. Really take that in. And you can practice this anywhere. You can be sitting on a bus, you can be sitting in a doctor's waiting room, you can be waiting for your scan results. Anytime someone's just said something to upset you, whatever it is, try to remember to pause, turn inwards, take 3 deep breaths, relax, and release tension. The more you do it, the more effective it is. So when we slow down and relax, we can actually access that peace that is inside all of us, all the time, underneath the turmoil. These are the words of Thich Nhat Hanh that I like particularly. Peace is present, right here and now, actually in all of us. In ourselves, in everything we do and see. Every breath we take, every step we take, can be filled with peace, joy, and serenity. We need only to be awake, alive in the present moment. Think about it. What might it be like to take every step with peace, joy, and serenity? It points to slowing down and becoming more present with ourselves. So let's take a deeper look at emotions. The fact is, we are very intellectually developed. Does anybody else have one of these with them today? Right? Amazing little computer that we all carry around. We don't think much of it. But Our great-grandparents didn't have this. They didn't have half our skills. Right here at Fred Hutch, people are doing amazing research to help those of us with cancer to recover. We have amazing skills that we have developed. We have a high IQ, but most of us don't have a very high emotional development or EQ. The fact is, we don't really know how to deal with our fear, our guilt, our grief, our anxiety. So let's take a look at that right now and see if we can find some of the clues. So here are a couple of nuggets. There's an amazing amount of research happening, as I'm sure you know, and the neuroscience is just amazing. But I pulled out two I want to share with you. Does anybody know Jill Bolte Taylor? Yes, a couple of people, right? So Jill is a brain scientist, and she had a major stroke. And over 4 hours, she lost her ability to walk, to talk, to write, or recall her life. And she observed the whole process while it was happening. And she wrote a book about it. And the book is called My Stroke of Insight. And she also has a TED Talk. The image is her holding a human brain in her TED Talk. Well worth watching and reading her book. But look at the words I've pulled out here. The natural lifespan of an emotion, the average time it takes for it to move through the nervous system and body is only 1.5 minutes, a mere 90 seconds. Is that how you experienced emotions, as lasting 90 seconds? It's not how I experienced them either. So read on. So if we wonder why we lock into painful emotional states like anxiety and depression, we need look no further than the endless stream of our inner dialogue. Thoughts and emotions work together. We don't suddenly have an emotion out of the blue. Actually, they are linked. And if you pay close attention to next time an emotion arises, look at what the thoughts were before you felt that emotion. And you start to see that we're actually fueling our emotions with our thoughts. And the other side of it is, well, how do we keep them going? And Jill Taylor says, we're re-stimulating the circuitry, resulting in you having this response over and over again. So our thoughts are actually helping us give rise to this emotion, and then our thoughts are helping to keep it going. So this is really important information and can actually help to bring this to mind, that what we are doing moment by moment is creating this loop that gets us in deeper and deeper, and we can tend to get that emotional response stronger and stronger. So next time you notice that, stop, take a breath, take 3 breaths, and remember the actual emotion I'm experiencing only takes 90 seconds to move through me. What else am I doing to keep this alive? That for me has been revolutionary. The second one I want to share with you is called the negativity bias of the brain. Anyone familiar with that? So this is really helpful information too. It basically says that our ancient brain, which is this part of our brain here, not this part, the prefrontal cortex that developed later, but this part was actually developed only to take care of survival. So its job is to note danger and threat, and it's very good at doing that. If the fire alarm goes off right here and now, we will all have a physiological response. and we will get out of this room fast, right? So our brains of our ancestors didn't develop to say, oh, it's lovely sitting here on this hot rock. Look at the view, it's beautiful. Right? That wasn't any use to our ancestors. So we actually didn't develop that circuitry in our brains. So we need to remember this negativity bias, because one of the brain scientists, Rick Hansen, says few pleasure circuits are in our brains to record happy moments. It's like pouring water through a sieve. They go straight through us. We are Velcro for pain. We are Teflon for pleasure. So bear that in mind, especially if you tend to depression and anxiety, that your brain was designed to pay attention to what's wrong, not what's right. So he suggested what he calls the 30-second rule. So when you're feeling relaxed, when you're enjoying being with a loved one, just feeling good, pay attention and try to take it in for 30 seconds so you really get it in your being. Because your brain isn't terribly interested. You actually have to train it to pay attention. So let's look at some of my favorite tools for transforming challenging emotions. So the first thing to realize is we have put many decades into developing our habits. And to start changing our emotional way of living actually requires building some new habits. So the first one I want to invite you to is living in the present. And you may say, well, of course I live in the present. Where else would I live? Well, the fact is, I've been talking for 20 minutes now. Where has your mind been? You remember that Harvard study that actually 50% of the time our mind is wandering? Where has your mind been as I've been talking? Did you follow every word? Or were you thinking about, gotta remember to call the plumber? Or what shall I make for dinner? I wonder what we're getting for lunch. Whatever it is, that's what our minds do. Nothing is wrong, but we're not present. So where does our mind go? Actually, it goes primarily to the past and the future. And living in the past is not a great place to live. Living in the past, we can get stuck in what I call our if-only mind, our regrets, our nostalgia, sometimes even our guilt or our shame for what happened back then. And as cancer survivors, it's really important to remember this, because we can quite unwittingly re-traumatize ourselves by retelling dreadful stories about our treatment. And we actually had someone come to the Cancer and Mindfulness retreat a few years ago who did that. And when we asked him very gently, how do you feel when you repeat those stories? He said, not good, actually. And it was the beginning of an aha moment for him, of realizing, of course we have to talk about what's happened and process it, but we don't want to stay there. So the point is, don't live in the past. Visit the past, but don't dwell there. And the same is true of the future. Think about it. When we say two of our biggest issues are anxiety and fear of uncertainty particularly, these are future-oriented, right? And as cancer survivors, this what-if mind can really plague us. What if the treatment doesn't work? What if it stops working? What if I have a recurrence? What if it metastasizes? What if my relationship fails? What if I can't pay the mortgage? Right? All of these things our mind is vulnerable to. We have a habit of catastrophizing, escalating, imagining the worst. And I can see some nods around the room. We all do this. You're not alone. But don't let the fear and anxiety of the future rob you of living right here and now in the present. Because actually, only in the present moment are we fully alive. Only right now can we experience these beautiful qualities of love, creativity, joy, right here and now. We don't experience them in the past or in the future. The next one I want to share with you is naming your emotions. So if I ask you right now, close your eyes for a second. What are you feeling? Just try to choose one emotion, any emotion. What are you feeling right now? And just take note of that. The truth is, we often don't know what we're feeling. Right? Anyone have that experience? Yes, these ladies say. Absolutely. We're not very aware of what we're feeling. This is important, actually, important information that we're missing. So look at this. This is an emotion chart. The ones in the center, the mad, sad, powerful, scared, etc., are pretty limited range. But look how each of them has all these other subtle emotions connected to them. And there are many other emotion charts. If you Google this, you'll find hundreds of them. Because actually Tibetan Buddhists say there are 84,000 emotions. I don't know whether anyone knows if that's true. But why is it important to us? Piece of research I want to share with you. So there was a study done where a group of people were taken into an enclosure with a live tarantula. And they were invited to approach the tarantula and touch it if they could. Then the group was divided into 4, and they all had different instructions. One group was told, "What did you feel? Talk about it." And so they then called the whole group back again and did the exact same thing. They were all put in the enclosure with the tarantula, and then each group split off again, and they measured their emotional reaction to the exposure to the tarantula. Guess what? The people who had talked about their feelings had much less reactivity. So when we notice ourselves getting triggered over and over again by the same thing, think about the tarantula. Tell yourself, tell somebody else, I'm scared, I'm afraid, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling ashamed, I'm feeling whatever it is. It doesn't matter, but name it and know what you are feeling. So how do we build a healthy relationship with our emotions? We accept them. So what we normally do, and our very unhealthy way of being with emotions, is to deny them, to avoid them. I'm fine, no problem at all, I'm doing fine. And we have an illusion of control, that if we avoid our feelings or deny them, they don't exist. We feel more in control. And as a psychotherapist, I can tell you that many, many people in therapy will say, I don't want to feel my feelings. I don't want to feel that sadness. Maybe I'll never stop crying. We're afraid of being overwhelmed by our feelings. But the healthy way of living with your emotions is actually to let them flow through you, like water. When we get stuck in an emotional state, think of it as like ice. It's frozen. And come back to the idea of the water. Let it flow through you. Don't try to control your emotions. Think of a toddler. If you watch a toddler for just an hour, They go through many different emotional states, right? I see some nods out there, people who know toddlers. And, pardon me. Sorry. Good moment to breathe.
Do you have water up there?
I have lemon water. Thank you. Okay. Simple exercise. We all get stuck in emotions. When you notice you're stuck, like the ice, this simple exercise helps. First of all, recognize. This is the naming that we just talked about, right? I'm worried. Pardon me. I'm so sorry.
Would you like a cough drop?
Bless you. I think the water will be good. Recognize. So whatever it is, I'm really hurt about what my best friend said yesterday. Or I can't stop worrying about my scan results. Whatever it is, I'm feeling stuck. I recognize it. Secondly, I release it. You can use your body, brush it out of you, shake it out of you. Imagine you're standing under a waterfall, and the water's pounding on your head, and it's just washing it right through you. Release it. Just let it go. Thirdly, relax. Recognize, release, and relax. It makes a difference. And the next one, turn towards your emotions. We want to avoid pain at all costs, but actually turning towards it can make a big difference. Here's a few lines from a poem I love. This is called Allow. Resist, and the tide will sweep you off your feet. Allow, and grace will carry you to higher ground. I recommend finding this poem and reading the whole thing. And this next one is about turning towards our emotions. Instead of pushing them away, we want to change this, bracing against, I don't want to feel that, into embrace. Here it is. This is what I'm feeling. The resistance creates tension. The embracing brings relaxation. And here's one of my favorite cartoons. Invite fear to tea. This is about how you approach these scary monsters of emotions like fear. Can you try to approach it? I don't know about inviting it for tea, but I like the image. Think about that tarantula and that experiment, right? Can you get up close to what scares you and name it and learn to be more relaxed with it? And lastly, I want to talk to you about kindness and self-compassion. So as Westerners, we are very prone to being self-critical and judgmental. Now, is that not true of any of you? Is anybody not self-critical or self-judgmental? I don't see any hands, not one, including mine. So the truth is, we all have this tendency. So close your eyes for a second and think about the last time you made a mistake. Any mistake, big or small. And bring to mind, what did you say to yourself? I'm such a failure. I never get things right. I always screw up. What an idiot. A sum of mine. Listen for what is yours. What do you actually say to yourself when you've done something you regret? And just note that. And now think about your best friend or your child or your partner. When they make a mistake, what do you say? What do you say to them? No problem. Try again. You did your best. That's what counts. You'll get it. Something like that, perhaps. We tend to be kind and encouraging and forgiving of other people. Notice if there's a difference between what you say to yourself and what you might say to a loved one. That's the basis for self-compassion and kindness. So there is actually a program you can take right here in Seattle of training in self-compassion that was started by a researcher with an autistic child who noticed how critical she was of her own mothering. And she had a really, really tough situation to deal with. She did the research and started this program. So I'm going to give you 3 lines from that program. The first one, this is a moment of suffering. So instead of suffering, you can put in whatever your word is, your emotion. This is a moment of anger, a moment of fear, a moment of jealousy, whatever it might be. And the second line, this emotion, anger, jealousy, whatever it is a part of life. Other people in this room are either feeling it right now or they have at some point, right? It's normal human feeling. And thirdly, may I be kind to myself in this moment. So this is bringing in, how do I respond to myself compassionately and kindly? This doesn't come easily to most of us. So I'd like to invite you to do this exercise with me. If you would close your eyes a second and turn inwards and see if you can identify an emotion, either one you're feeling right now or one that has been difficult for you in the past. And just name what it is. Don't belabor it, nothing too complicated. And now just say this line to yourself. This is a moment of anxiety, a moment of sadness, or fear, or anxiety. I'm noting what I'm feeling. I'm not criticizing it, I'm accepting it. Secondly, this emotion is a normal part of life. Probably everybody in this room feels this at some point. People all over this city are feeling it. People all over the globe are feeling this same emotion right now. That can help because we tend to feel isolated. Only I am feeling this awful hatred or jealousy or fear. You're not alone. Thirdly, how may I be kind to myself in this moment? And notice this invites action. And one simple action is you can put your arms around yourself. Give yourself a hug. Rock back and forth. It sounds a little crazy, but try it. Yes. How is that? It makes a difference, doesn't it? Just, I'm feeling whatever I'm feeling right now. I'm accepting it. I'm responding kindly to it. So that is the exercise that I highly recommend you continuing with. The other things that we talked about are live in the present. Don't live in your past or your future. Live in the here and now. Name your emotions. Think about the tarantula. Name what you're feeling. Accept your emotions. Don't push them away, avoid them, deny them, pretend you're not feeling what you're feeling. Turn towards your emotions, like inviting fear to tea. Embrace them. Practice kindness and self-compassion. Learn to be your own very best friend. And I can tell you I've been doing this for a long time. And when I make a mistake now, I actually hear something from my childhood like, "Oh, you silly bunny," which is really sweet. That's not what I used to say, right? So take a moment as we come to an end and just turn inwards one more time. Notice your breath and allow your in-breath to quiet your mind. We've done a lot of thinking and talking. Let your mind become quiet. And let each out-breath ease any anxious thoughts or worries. Let each in-breath soothe and calm you. Let each out-breath release tension in your mind and in your body. Let each in-breath soothe your heart, letting each out-breath bring peacefulness and ease to your heart. And I invite you to put a hand on your heart. Feel the warmth of your hand as a soothing presence, something we can all do anytime, especially in difficult moments. And send loving kindness and compassion to yourself. May I be well. May I be healthy. May I be strong. And imagine your heart is full of light, and send that light out to everyone here in the room with us so they can receive it too. And then send it to everyone in this conference, everyone watching online. And send it further to your loved ones throughout this city, wider and wider. Just really feeling this depth of love and compassion in all our hearts. We have to connect with it. You all look very peaceful. I don't want to interrupt you. But I need to share with you my contact information. If you want to take a photo of it, to be in touch with me, I have a mailing list you're welcome to sign. I have business cards outside. I have a CD, this CD, Finding Tranquility. I think some people here already have. And you're welcome to take one and just put a donation in the jar. And upcoming events. Next year's Awaken Alive, Mindful Living with Cancer, April 20 to 24th. You are all welcome. And the online class is a program I have been doing with a group in London called the Mindfulness Project, and it's fabulous. We have a 2-hour class. People call in from Yorkshire, all over the UK, and they call in from all over the USA. And you're very welcome to join. Just get in touch with me. And if you have any questions, this is your moment. Anyone, anything they need to say or ask about? Oh, you're very, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Your attention has been beautiful, and I've loved watching all your reactions. Your faces are very expressive. So there's a table right at the beginning of the tables. And if we run out of CDs, ask me. I have more, and business cards. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day.